I get a lot of questions all the time about people living in different parts of the country wanting to move to Chattanooga. In today's video, we're going to discuss many different things why you should avoid moving to Chattanooga, and if these things really bother you, I would strongly consider not moving to the area. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Living in Chattanooga, Tennessee. My name is Junior Francica and I'm an agent here in Chattanooga. As much as I love making these videos, I love more helping you move to the area because we absolutely love people that love our area and want to make this place home. So if you're considering moving here and I haven't answered any questions from today's video or any other videos you have seen, feel free to reach out to me on the number on your screen. Shoot me a text, give me a call, find me on social media, reach out with a message there. Any way you need to get a hold of me, I'm always here to help. So with that being said, let's get back to today's video. One of the main things that people talk about is the no state income tax in Tennessee, but something people don't speak on is the high sales tax. So Tennessee has one of the highest sales tax in the country. It's not the highest like California and other places, but it is top 10, sometimes number 11 on the list of most sales tax or the highest sales tax. So Tennessee as a whole has 7% sales tax, and every different county has their own sales tax on top of that. In Hamilton County, where Chattanooga is located, we have 2.25% sales tax. So we have a total of 9.25 sales tax. Now, it's not a big deal, especially when you're saving with no state income tax, but when you have big purchases like cars or a bunch of stuff throughout the year, it can accumulate and it can add up. That's just something to keep into or take into account. One thing I will mention is that our Costco is right over the border in Georgia, where they have 4 or 5% sales tax. So that is a little way to get around it. For all your big groceries, you can just hop over to Georgia, pay the lower sales tax, and then come back home to Tennessee. The second point I want to discuss is that it rains in Chattanooga, and compared to where you're coming from, it could rain a lot. Even for some locals here, some years it rains way more than average, and it kind of gets taxing and consuming with all the rain. So in Chattanooga, it rains an average of 51 inches a year, and the national average is only 38 inches of rain a year. So as you can see, we're well above the national average when it comes to rain. Typically, the rainy season is anywhere from December to March timeframe, more in the winter. The rain that you can expect here is very light, drizzly, where everything's kind of gray and gloomy outside, so that kind of makes for a sucky or gloomy winter. But just know that that's mainly the rainy season. I think March is the rainiest month of the year, but like some summers, like this summer, it has been raining quite a bit. We'll have a month of no rain and then all of a sudden 3 weeks of just pouring rain all the time. So it can get tiring because it's not like some places where it'll rain once a week or once every other week. Here, when it rains for a week or two ahead of time, and in the winter it can rain for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. The third thing I want to discuss is how hot and humid it is here in the summers. Now, if you're coming from Florida or Georgia or some other parts of the country, it may not be too bad for you and you may be used to that type of weather. Me personally, I love hot and humidity. I love it when I can go out for a run and I'm hot and sweaty. It just makes me feel nice. It's good for your skin when you're sweaty as opposed to the dry heat. But if you're coming from places where it's really dry or it's a lot cooler, just know that yes, we don't get 110-degree temperatures, but it will be pretty humid. So even if it's 85 or 90 degrees, it feels way harder and you are pretty much going to sweat all day, every day when you're outside doing, gardening, you're out hiking, you're out playing with your kids, out for a run. It is very humid here, and that's something to take into account. The next thing we're going to discuss is allergies. So allergies here can be a big issue for some, especially if you already have issues with allergies wherever you're coming from, especially in the springtime. Everything kind of comes alive and the sky almost looks like a yellowish, greenish with so much pollen in the air. But also in the fall time, when you have the ragweed and the tree pollen kind of changing with the leaves, it can affect you pretty badly. Myself, I've never had issues with allergies until I moved to Chattanooga. The first couple years that I was here, that 1 to 2 weeks of allergy season when it spikes up in the spring and the fall, I do have to go on, like a daily allergy medication. But then after a week or two, it kind of subsides and I'm fine. But I know, like, I have family that if there's any dust whatsoever in their house, they're sneezing, they're runny nose, they're coughing. And when they come and visit, they most of the time have to take allergy medication, and they are still sniffling and sneezing throughout the whole time that they're here. So if you have really bad allergies, that's something to take into account. The next thing I want to discuss is tornadoes. Now, this is a question I get probably asked most out of everything, is tornadoes, and how often do we get them? Is it very dangerous issues? I don't want to be in areas that get tornadoes more than the other, and so on and so forth. So as you can see from the data that I'm putting on the screen, from 1950 to 2022, which is 72 years, Tennessee as a whole, or actually Hamilton County as a whole, has only gotten 26 tornadoes total. Now that's over 72 years. Now, is it something that happens? Yes, of course. We do get tornadoes. I believe one happened 3.5 to 4 years ago in an area here in Chattanooga. It touched down for a mile, it picked up, it disappeared. Before that was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and that was right over the border into kind of Ringgold, Georgia. So yes, we do get tornadoes here. It's not something that happens every year. And as far as my understanding goes, it's when the cool weather of winter mixes with the warm weather of spring, and that's when you can have tornadoes form. So it's really just a couple months out of the year. It's not like it's July or August or the fall time frame and all of a sudden you get tornadoes. That's not typically when it happens. It's more in the spring time frame. I do get that question asked a lot. So yes, we get tornadoes here. It doesn't happen very often, but it's something you need to take into account. Something else to take into account is that Chattanooga, I guess it's categorized as a medium size city, but I would say small to medium-ish size city. And what that means is that we do not have a lot of big name brand stores, right? So we don't have an Apple store. At one point, we had an Apple authorized retailer. I believe it was called Mac Authority at the mall, but it's since closed shop. So the closest thing you're going to get to an Apple store is things like Best Buy or maybe even Target. And that's just to let you know that if you really like these huge these huge name brand stores like Apple, so on and so forth, you're not going to have that here. You will be able to drive 2 hours south to Atlanta or 2.5-ish hours north to Nashville where you can get those stores. But that's another negative, I guess, for this small to medium sized city. We don't have a lot of the big city amenities that you'll find in bigger cities. To a lot of people, that's fine, and that's why they move here, because they want that. But some people still want those big brand stores, and we don't have that here. Another thing I want to mention is that it's not really a really big planned city like a lot of places in Florida or California, Nevada, Arizona, where you have, they start here and then they plan and build all the way this way. The way that Chattanooga is laid out, they just kind of have developments kind of popping up all over the place. And I've sold homes that were $1 million in this $1 million subdivision, and right next to it was a $300,000 house. Then there was a trailer house, and then there was a $800,000 house, so on and so forth. And that's very normal for the area. It's very hard to explain unless you come visit, but you'll drive down the road and see beautiful, massive houses, then keep driving and see an old abandoned house, keep driving, see a $400,000 house, keep driving, see a trailer. That's just very common to the area. And what I think happened is that there's a lot of farming type things going in the area. And as farmers start to sell off lands to developers and different people that will develop these areas, it's not like they will just sell off 1,000 acres. They'll sell off 50 acres of a little tract if they need some money. So the developers will develop this little spot, and then they'll sell maybe an acre tract to somebody else, and they will build just a single level house, right? So it'll be kind of sporadic as things get built, but there's still so much land and so much growth to happen. That's just something you need to know. You will find a lot of lower income housing with higher income housing. That's just the way it is here. It doesn't mean good, it doesn't mean bad. That's just something to expect when you visit Chattanooga. Now, the next topic, with it not being super planned, it also means that the growth of the area is also needing to expand, right? So the city and the county are constantly trying to expand roadways and expand the highways so that we can account for that growth, and that brings a lot more traffic. So I've been on these videos, 2 years ago saying that the traffic is not that bad. Well, as the years have gone by, the traffic has started to get a little bit worse. They are trying to mitigate the situation with doing things with the highways and roads, but there's a lot more people living here and there's a lot more traffic. One area that gets the worst traffic is I-24. So as you come up north from I-75 from Georgia, you take I-24 that goes all the way to downtown, and then it goes in between Lookout and Elder Mountain and kind of goes west so you can go up to Nashville. That little highway right there is kind of a lane for where truckers are either coming from Atlanta or coming down from Nashville, and they go through the city. So during the morning and the afternoon rush hour traffic times, there's a lot of truckers going through that little highway in that little spot, so it does get pretty congested there. Otherwise, there's little parts here and there that have some congestion, but for the most part, in my opinion, it's not super bad, but it is getting to the point that it's pretty noticeable when it wasn't super noticeable just a couple years ago. The city is growing. The city is trying to plan and widen roadways and work on the highways, but all that is starting to have more traffic in the area, and something that you should know. So I actually went on my Instagram and I asked a lot of my friends locally. I put up a post, hey, I'm making a video about the bad things about the Chattanooga area. What are some things that you guys don't like? Traffic was a big thing that they came up with, but also people talked about the nightlife. So if you're into clubbing or dancing or partying, Chattanooga is not a huge party city by any means. Yes, there's bars and there's some small clubs, but it's something that, it's not the main attraction here. So if you're okay with just going out here and there and you just want something to do, great. But a lot of the stuff, like the mall closes at 8 p.m. A lot of the restaurants close fairly early. And a lot of people that are night owls, is what I heard, that they don't have places to go or restaurants to stay out late in. I know the movie theaters here, I think the late times are like 7 p.m., maybe 8 p.m. if you're lucky. So just take into account, it's not a huge city that has a vibrant nightlife. If you love nightlife and you are a night owl and you like being out and about, it's going to be hard for you. One thing I will mention is you have a land in Nashville to get away to, but it's not in your backyard. So the nightlife here in Chattanooga pretty much sucks. The next thing that I heard a lot about on my post on Instagram from locals here in the area is that traveling to other places or visiting other places it sucks, right? Because we do have a small airport, and it's not that they didn't like the airport, but it's because it makes it a little bit more expensive flying to places and also a little bit harder. So I think we only have 7 one-way direct flights to places, and one of the flights is to Atlanta, which is 2-hour drive south. So we don't have a lot of direct flights to areas. So you're probably gonna have to fly to either directly to Dallas, Charlotte, or Atlanta and get a connecting flight to wherever it is you want to go. And some have mentioned, yeah, we can just drive 2 hours to Atlanta, but one, you have to deal with the drive because you have to drive there and drive back, and 2, you have to pay for parking every day that you're there. So something to take into account if you fly a lot for work, or you like to visit family in different parts of the country or the world, or you just like to travel. We have a small airport, and going through security is awesome because it's a breeze, but it might be a little bit more expensive and a little bit more of a pain because you're always going to have to be getting connecting flights. Something that I haven't really seen a lot of people mention online about Chattanooga is that the power typically tends to go out at least once a year, especially for me and people that I know. It's a smaller, medium-sized city, so the power grid, I'm not sure if it's super old or what the deal is, but whenever we get thunderstorms, at least once a year, you'll get your power knocked out, sometimes just for 30 minutes, half a day. That's typically what happens. We have EPB here, which typically resolves things very quickly. But for the most part, every year, I want to say my power has gone out in my house and my friends for at least 30 minutes to half a day. Sometimes when you get really bad storm here, it might go out for a day, maybe a couple days. That's never happened to me, but I know people that it has happened to. So having a backup generator or living in an area that have generators, maybe something that you need to look into for yourself or your family, but just know that that's something that does happen in the area. We get a lot of thunderstorms here in the spring and in the summertime, and that could make you lose your power. And the last thing that I've heard from my Instagram post is that the way the city is located, you're really 2 hours away from any major concerts, major venues, major sporting events, because we have venues here, and sometimes we get some, quality name people, but not the really high-end quality people. So if you're gonna go to a concert or sporting event, you're either gonna have to drive 2 hours south to Atlanta or 2.5 hours up north to Nashville. Personally, for me, that doesn't bother me at all, because I would love to just make that drive and come back home and not have that congestion in my downtown, in my city, like it happens in those areas. But a lot of people that love going to concerts or events, or seeing a professional NBA, NHL, NFL team, you will have to drive a couple hours away to get to that, because we don't have that here in Chattanooga. Well, that's today's video, guys. I hope I was able to give you some of the reasons or the big negatives of living in this area. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me on the number on your screen. I would love to help you guys make the move to Chattanooga, because I love it here so much, and I've helped so many people move here that have all loved it as well. So if you're considering moving here, reach out to me. We'd love to help you. Until next time, take care and God bless.